When Fidel Castro first came to power, which was when? 59? Does that sound right?
59-60.
Okay. You know what he did? He initiated a major literacy program. There was a lot of folks in Cuba at that point who were illiterate. And he formed the literacy brigade. You may read that. He went out and they helped people learn to read and write. You know what? I think teaching people to read and write is a good thing.
And of course, you just heard Bernie Sanders doubling down on comments he made in the past as a very radical mayor, you know, in Vermont, and kind of a radical socialist and someone who visited this, you know, they make a big deal, he went to the Soviet Union on his honeymoon, but he's now doubling down, not backing away for his praise of the Cuban regime, Fidel Castro. But we have a significant population centers in our country of people who have fled communism, whether it is Eastern European families that fled communism in the 80s and socialism, whether it is Cuban families who are still fleeing it in places like South Florida, but now throughout the country with Cuban populations growing. And I will tell you this, there's a reason why the DNC is so scared, because it's pretty tough to win the presidential election if you have no chance in Florida. And Bernie Sanders just burned. Literally, you want to feel the burn? They're not feeling it in Florida and those 29 electoral votes. It may help him during the primary to be a radical communist socialist praising Fidel Castro's literacy program, which, as the news has reported, was actually a program to make sure that they could spread communist propaganda.
It's important to note that Cuba was one of the most literate countries in Latin America before Fidel Castro took over. And number two, that countries like Ecuador and others in Latin America have made huge strides in literacy without imprisoning and killing their citizens. And then number three, the major objective of the Cuban program was not literacy, but indoctrination. So what Bernie Sanders effectively was praising last night with respect to the Cuban literacy program is that he was literally praising communist propaganda. And I think that is absolutely clear.
Him trying to extol the virtues of people like Fidel Castro or the communist Chinese is sort of like saying, you know, Osama bin Laden was a good family man because he had so many kids, or the Unabomber was an extremely bright guy. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Since the Soviet Union, the Bolsheviks founded the first, quote, socialist republic in 1917, over 100 million people have died at the hands of communists and socialists, and many of those are actually in China. And you can't deny the fact that, I mean, and he doesn't want to admit this, he's denied it, but communism is the first cousin of socialism. They're connected at the root, and attempts to dress up socialism and downplay its communist attributes literally have not worked. And everywhere that socialism has become the dominant policy, it has become the nightmare of government control and oppression wherever it exists.
Using words like socialism, Democrat socialism, and communism, you were already losing that vote. When you start praising the dictatorship that their families, their grandparents, maybe their parents, maybe them, because people are still fleeing it, that have fled to come to America, you certainly have lost their vote, and you've encouraged them to go out and vote for Donald Trump.